promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Banjul, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, the headlines. Chad closes its border with Sudan until further notice after repeated incursions by Sudanese forces. Transitional authorities in Guinea schedule legislative and communal polls for May 24.
The PEDN could be a candidate in the next legislative, senatorial, communal and community elections. The party remains fully engaged in democratic life and determined to offer a credible alternative to Guinea.
Ghana and Burkina Faso move to deepen intelligence sharing following deadly attacks on cross-border traders. And in Nigeria, voter apathy in the capital's council polls raises concerns about turnout ahead of the 2027 general elections. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jibril Janko.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Newslink begins in the Central Sahel, precisely Chad, while the government has, with immediate effect, closed the country's eastern border with Sudan. Jamena cited the repeated violations of its territory and rising tensions linked to the ongoing conflict in Sudan. In a statement issued on Monday, the Ministry of Communications said the measure takes effect immediately and will remain in place until further notice. Imo Edit reports.
Authorities in Chad say the decision follows repeated incursions attributed to parties involved in Sudan's war that began in 2023. The government says the move is aimed at preventing the conflict from spilling into Chad. And Jammeh also states it hopes to protect civilians and refugees and safeguard the country's stability and territorial integrity. All border crossings have been closed and the movement of the people of goods suspended, with limited exemptions for humanitarian cases subject to prior approval. Tensions between the two countries escalated late last year after a Sudanese NGO filed accusations against Chad at the International Criminal Court. The Chadian government rejected the claims as politically motivated and insisted it remains neutral in the conflict between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces. Chad says it has hosted more than 1.5 million Sudanese refugees since 2023. It also reported a deadly drone strike on a military camp in eastern Chad in December, warning that any further violation of its territory could prompt a response under international law.
Imo Edit filed that report. Ghana and Burkina Faso have agreed to intensify intelligence sharing and counter-terrorism cooperation following recent attacks that claimed the lives of Ghanaians, including traders operating in Burkina Faso. Samuel Oblakwa says the renewed security cooperation follows high-level talks with Burkina Faso's leadership during a two-day official visit. From Accra, now the dictator reports.
The discussions come on the back of a recent terrorist attack in Burkina Faso that killed several people, including Ghanaian tomato traders, raising concerns about the safety of cross-border business operators. The two countries have now agreed to establish a common security framework that will allow intelligence sharing, joint training and broader collaboration to confront the growing extremist threats in the Sahel. The Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okojeto-Ablakwa says without addressing insecurity, development gains in trade, agriculture and tourism cannot be sustained.
We extended the commiserations of President Mahama and the government and people of Ghana to Burkina Faso on the recent terrorist attack, which also claimed Ghanaian lives. And we have pledged to forge a strong collaboration in dealing with the terrorism situation.
As part of the renewed efforts, Ghana will host a special security conference in Accra on March 4, bringing together security experts and special envoys to the Sahel. Burkina Faso's leadership has been invited to participate. Beyond security, both countries have reactivated their Permanent Joint Commission for Cooperation, which had not met since 2018 under the direction of Presidents John Dramani Mahama and Ibrahim Traore. For WDR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Benin, a high-level delegation from the National Democratic Institute, NDI, has concluded its pre-election assessment mission ahead of the presidential polls scheduled for next April. Following intensive consultations with key stakeholders, the institute is calling for urgent political dialogue to de-escalate tensions and ensure a credible process. Our Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Suley has details presented by Augustine Kohli.
The NDR's visit comes at a pivotal moment for Benin's democracy. During their stay, the delegation held wide-range discussions with heads of electoral institutions, leadership from both the ruling majority and opposition parties, and civil society actors. At the core of their findings is a strong appeal for the restoration of political trust. The NDI is urging Benin stakeholders to institutionalize ongoing dialogue as a preventive measure against political instability. Former Central African Republic President Catherine Samba Panza, a member of the delegation, underscored the necessity of this engagement.
Nous avons relevé que beaucoup d'efforts ont été faits par les gouvernants.
We noted that many efforts have been made by the governing bodies. Many efforts, but alongside that, we also heard many complaints from the Beninese people, and we cannot silence them. We felt a fear over the city. We felt a civil society that no longer dares to undertake civic actions. We felt political parties that are more or less muzzled. We noted a certain number of drifts on the edge of dictatorship. We were surprised to see certain limitations of the political and civic framework. We were surprised to see this kind of disinterest from the Beninese political and civil class in the upcoming process. We understood that Benin is going through a worrying situation.
Que le Bénin est en train de traverser une situation préoccupante.
Beyond dialogue, the Institute highlighted several technical benchmarks for a transparent poll. These include ensuring equitable access to state media for all candidates and a call for electoral bodies to provide clear, timely communication regarding the technical roadmap of the elections. Furthermore, the NDR is pushing for greater democratic institution. The mission's final report recommends specific mechanisms to increase the participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, ensuring the upcoming vote reflects the diversity of the Benin's electorate.
Augustine Kohli voiced that report by WDR's Aziz Adam Suley. Well, more on electoral matters. Authorities in Guinea have signaled the beginning of the final phase of the country's return to a civilian role. Following the presidential elections last December, President Mamadi Doumbouya signed a decree scheduling the long-awaited parliamentary and communal elections for May 24. While the announcement has sparked a wave of optimism among the citizenry, the political class remains cautious, demanding ironclad guarantees for a transparent process. Our Conakry correspondent, Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Balde, has the details as presented by Abdullah Hassan.
The announcement of the May 24 election date has immediately recalibrated the Guinean political landscape. For many in the streets of Conakry, the capital, the decree is seen as a final milestone to turn the page on military transition and restore a full constitutional framework. However, within political circles, the mood is one of guarded skepticism. Leaders from across the spectrum are calling for more than just a date. They are demanding a roadmap that ensures the inclusiveness and integrity of the vote. Prominent political voices, including Lansana Kouyaté, president of the PEDM party, and Oye Boyevugui of the GDR, have voiced their concerns regarding the technical readiness of the electoral body.
The PEDN could be a candidate in the next legislative, senatorial, communal and community elections. The party remains fully engaged in democratic life and determined to offer a credible alternative to Guinea and people of Guinea.
Since it is with a favorable opinion of the general direction of elections, the DGE, we dare to believe that things will unfold in the most beautiful way. We estimate that there will be more openness at the level of the DGE in order to be able to avoid for the next candidates what we have followed in terms of irregularity concerning certain candidates in the past presidential election.
This legislative and communal cycle follows the suggestion by the Chief Electoral Officer to synchronize both polls to streamline costs and logistics. As the country moves toward the May deadline, All eyes remain on General Mamadou Doumbouya's administration to see if it will deliver the definitive return to constitutional order it has promised since the December presidential polls.
A report by WDR's Channel Alpha Ibrahim Abalde in Conakry and voiced by Abdullahi Hassan. Crossing over to Nigeria, celebrations broke out across Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, following the conclusion of the area council elections. However, beyond the immediate victories, the stark reality of urban voter apathy is being viewed as a warning for Nigeria's 2027 general elections and a litmus test for democratic resilience. Our Abuja correspondent Yechinu Sasetu reports from Abuja.
The air in parts of the FCT was thick with music and cheers as the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) concluded the collation of results. In a significant win for the ruling party, APC candidate Danjuma Shokolu was declared the chairman-elect for the Kuje Area Council.
That Danjuma Samuel Shokolu of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected.
While party observers have characterized the conduct of the polls as largely peaceful, the silence at polling units in Abuja's urban centers told a different story.
The election is very nice today, but people they are come and they try their best because of the capacity of the chairman. We like as the vote is going now.
Thus far, it's been successful, even though we are experiencing massive voters apathy now.
This troubling level of apathy in a politically strategic hub like the FCT is sounding alarm bells. Analysts suggest that the declining civic participation in the nation's capital is a symptom of a deeper crisis of confidence in the electoral process. If the heart of the nation's administration cannot mobilize its voters, the implications for the 2027 general elections and the stability of Nigeria's democratic model are severe. President Bola Tinubu has congratulated the winners in the FCT alongside those in Kano and Rivers State, framing the polls as a step forward in Nigeria's democratic progression. However, for regional democracy advocates, the progression is under threat if institutional trust continues to erode. The challenge for Nigeria now moves beyond simply holding elections to rebuilding the very foundation of public participation. As the giant of Africa looks toward 2027, the success of its democracy will depend less on the celebrations of winners and more on the ability of the state to re-engage a disillusioned electorate.
Yechenu Sasetu with that report. The Malian transitional government has placed the industrial localization at the forefront of its economic recovery strategy. In a sweeping new directive, the Ministry of Economy and Finance has ordered all ministerial departments to prioritize indigenous goods in their budgetary allocations. The move is designed to stimulate national enterprises and systematically dismantle the country's reliance on imports. Here is a report by Ali Chamin Bamako and presented by Christopher Aticho.
In a bold step towards economic self-reliance, the Malian authorities are shifting the state's massive purchasing power towards the domestic market. The new mandate specifically targets the procurement of locally manufactured furniture, processed foods, including indigenous teas and juice, and national sanitary products. Under the 2026 fiscal framework, every government department is now required to earmark approximately $100 million specifically for the acquisition of made-in-Mali goods. According to the finance minister, this is not merely a fiscal adjustment, but a strategic intervention to provide Malian businesses with the guaranteed offtake they need to scale. Economist Modibo Mao Makulu views this initiative as a critical catalyst for macroeconomic stability. He believes that by leveraging state consumption, Mali can spark a chain reaction of industrial growth.
Si vous regardez notre balance commerciale,
if you look at our trade balance, the products we consume the most are hydrocarbons. We don't produce any, so we are forced to buy abroad. But on the other hand, food products are our fourth largest import item, even though Mali is an agricultural power. Take powdered milk, for example. Mali has the second largest livestock population in West Africa and the third largest in all of Africa.
Yet, we continue to buy 30 billion worth of powdered milk from abroad. This is what we must encourage, that local production can be consumed locally. This would allow the economy to grow and enrich all the actors involved in this sector.
L'ensemble des acteurs qui sont impliqués dans cette filière.
This policy alignment coincides with a broader regional trend, like several of its neighbors in the Waimo zone. Mali traditionally dedicates the month of October to promoting local consumption. However, this latest budgetary mandate suggests that the government is moving beyond seasonal advocacy towards a permanent structural transformation of the national economy.
A report by our Bamako correspondent, voiced by Christopher Atijo. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and live on WADR.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Chad closes its border with Sudan until further notice after repeated incursions by Sudanese forces. Transitional authorities in Guinea scheduled legislative and communal polls for May 2024. Ghana and Burkina Faso moved to deepen intelligence sharing following deadly attacks on cross-border traders. Still ahead in the news, Nigeria voter apathy in Capital Council raises concern about turnout ahead of the 2027 general elections. We also have press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Senegal, public indignation continues to mount following the verdict handed down to 18 Senegalese football supporters detained in Morocco. The group arrested in the wake of violence during the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations final have been found guilty of hooliganism and sentenced to terms ranging from 3 to 12 months. Defense counsel Patrick Kabu has criticized the judicial process as unfair.
Mes clients jusqu'à présent, ils ne comprennent pas exactement la décision parce qu'il y a
My
des peines
clients
qui vont
don't
de
exactly understand the decision yet because the sentences range from 3 to 12 months. That is the role of a lawyer, to be able to explain all the details concerning the sentencing. But even for that, we haven't had time to exchange. I will remind you that up until now, based on the authorization I have from the King's prosecutor, out of the 18 clients, I can only see 5. To appeal the decision, we are governed by strict rules. First, we have to discuss it with the clients. The first difficulty is that out of 18, I can only see 5 based on the documents provided by the King's prosecutor. So if we have to take steps, we will see with the diplomats who are there and who have done the work from the beginning and who allowed us to have information on our own clients. Maybe we will find the other means to inform these compatriots. There are the sentences first, and also because we have 10 days to appeal. That is the difficulty during these 10 days, to try to see them, explain to them, and gather their opinion because they are the ones who decide, not me.
C'est ça encore la difficulté sur ces 10 jours-là, c'est de les voir, leur expliquer et recueillir leur avis parce que c'est eux qui décident, hein, donc c'est pas moi.
Patrick Kabu is counsel to the accused supporters. Now, the free port of Monrovia was a hub of activity this Sunday as the vessel HJ Singapore delivered the first consignment of 130 heavy-duty earth-moving machines. The shipment, featuring bulldozers, excavators and dump trucks, marks the initial phase of a larger 285-unit procurement aimed at transforming road infrastructure across all 15 Liberian counties. The arrival follows a period of intense scrutiny and recognitions of contracts spearheaded by the Vice President to ensure transparency.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's join WADR's Yechenusa Setu in Abuja for today's press review.
Greetings. We begin with this day newspaper. Bandits lay siege to Ekiti communities. Kill woman, abduct residents. Ahead of 2027, APC wins 5 out of 6 FCT area councils, ADC MOM. INEC now considered last hope on e-transmission of results. Senate confronts Tinubu's economic team over 58.47 trillion naira 2026 budget. And now to Guardian. Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, HURIWA, accuses Wike of undermining FCT poll. We can achieve intel, stability via controlled rehabilitation of terrorists, says Chief of Defense Staff. Activist kicks against Plateau State sponsoring of pilgrims with 7.48 billion naira. And Dangote opens refinery shareholding to Nigerians, sets 4-month timeline. Over to Guardian. 2027 polls. APC, 4 parties ready, 16 others in candidates' crisis. NIMET forecasts 3-day dust haze, cloudiness across Nigeria. Latest Plateau killings, death toll rises to 10. Nigeria wins $6.2 million arbitration case against European Dynamics UK Limited. And finally, Punch newspaper. NNPC, NUPRC fear financial squeeze after Tinubu's order. Rigging. INEC resident electoral commissioners risk 2-year jail term. That's in the Reformed Electoral Act. FCT poll. PDP drags APC to court after 5 council sweep. NYPD hunts killer of Nigerian inside US nightclub. In entertainment, Peter Okoye admits co-signing North Side account, contradicts earlier claim. And in sports, Nigeria fencer Nkosi Bro breaks into World Junior Top 10. And that's it on Press Review. Back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Chenusa Setu in Abuja for the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In our guest interview, we focus on Burkina Faso, where citizens are directly funding the fight against armed groups through the Patriotic Support Fund, launched in 2023. Over the past 3 years, the fund has mobilized nearly 500 billion CFA francs, which authorities describe as a strong show of national solidarity amid growing insecurity. Officials say the fund support military logistics, equipment, and volunteers for the defense of the homeland. While the government calls it collective resistance, some analysts question the economic burden on citizens and whether the model is sustainable. Well, Yusuf Wadr is a policy strategist and governance expert, share his perspective.
If you want to understand how Burkina is funding the counter-terrorism and how the burden is being shouldered by the citizen, you have to look at the way the counter-terrorism strategy is designed. So we have the institutional approach with the army and the security forces in general. But as you know, since 2022, Burkina decided to associate citizens in defending the nation in countering terrorism. Through this, they have asked people in the villages to come voluntarily and to enroll. Then they get trained, they get equipment in order to protect their village. But as you know, if you are a farmer, you are a fisherman, or you are running your activity, and now it's your duty to protect your village, then it means you will need to have something to make a living. So that's why the government decided to set up this special fund where some people have the gun, some people have decided to jeopardize their life in protecting their villages, and others will use their pocket, will use their resources in order to contribute in making a substantial fund in order to finance this counter-terrorism. So this fund primarily is for volunteers, while we have the army, which is supported by the budget.
I want to ask Mr. Ouattara, because you are on the ground and you seem to be optimistic that this would help. But don't we fear that there will be retaliatory attacks on the citizens as a result of them contributing towards ending the activities of these very armed groups?
Do we have such fears among the population in Burkina Faso?
Yes, it's not just a fear; it's a reality. Since the beginning, to decide to enroll as volunteers, they are the first target. They are really target from terrorist groups, and this has happened many times. And there have been massive killing in some villages because just people have decided to enroll. But when it comes to the funding, I think Burkina Faso requires a lot of studies and a lot of consideration. We all think that funding development, funding the government action, taxation, and the budget is the main instrument in funding the government action, including security. But taxation has shown some limits because you can have an individual, you can have an actor who has completed all his or her taxation duties, but that person is still willing to contribute to public action. That person is still willing to contribute to development or for security. If you take the diaspora, for example, they are not subject to local taxation. Even if they are subject to taxation, once you finish paying your taxes, but you know your country, your people are in danger, and you want to contribute, how do you contribute if there is no mechanism? And that's why Burkina approach is very original, because they set up an instrument which come in addition to taxation and to the budget, and which give room to any citizen.
That was Yusuf Wadr, policy, strategies and governance expert. Well, in the sporting world, let's begin with boxing. His quarterfinal bout at the Niger Delta Games delivered fireworks on day 2 with fighters from Delta, Imo, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, Edo and Rivers booking semi-final places across the men's and women's division. In cricket, South Africa thrashed the defending champions India by 76 runs in their ICC Men's T20 World Cup Super 8 opener. David Miller's 65 and 4 wickets from Marco Jansen powered the Proteas to victory after bowling India out 411 in Ahmedabad. In football, 2 Premier League players, Nigeria international Tolu Arokodare of Wolves and Sunderland's Romain Mondol, have been targeted with racist abuse online. Their clubs and the Premier League have condemned the incidents, warning that bans and legal action could follow. And Arsenal boosted their Premier League title charge with a dominant 4-1 win over Tottenham Hotspur, restoring their 5-point lead at the top of the English Premier League with 10 matches remaining. We've come to another edition of Newslink on West Africa Democratic Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudaju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, Instagram and Facebook at WDR English. Coming up shortly is a repeat broadcast of WDR's flagship health program, Well Buddy with Imo Edit. It will be immediately followed by the second edition of Newslink in French Info chez vous at 1 p.m. I am Sankule Jibril Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone, in Nigeria, and